All right, well, a powerful story, and unfortunately not just isolated to Los Angeles. Now, according to one estimate, the number of homeless children and youth enrolled in America's schools rose by 41% over the past few years. Now, this may be a depressing trend, but some students do find a way to succeed, despite all odds. One of them joins us here today to share his story. His name is Brian K. Smith. And Brian, thank you so much for being here. You know, on the show, so often we talk about issues that aren't really covered by mainstream media, and a lot of times they're depressing stories, but what you went through and where you are today is really quite an inspiration to a lot of folks. Now, I understand you graduated last month. You're here in Washington with a great job. You'll be enrolling in grad school, but it's a little bit of a change from where you've come from.
Most definitely.
Walk me through your story. What happened with you?
Okay, I was a student at Cal State Long Beach, and I guess when you have a certain number of units, the government said that you're cut off from financial aid. So since I was a foreign language major before, I had plenty of units, and then of course my financial aid ended. But I didn't realize that when I had gotten loans as well, that those certain loans would also stop. And so then when I came back to school, I found myself not getting the $15,000 or so in financial aid, and then I was kind of stuck. Which goes a long way. Yes.
And before we go into how you dealt with that, just to give some folks here a background, you're the first man in your family to go to college, is that correct?
Yes.
And so you're somewhat of a prodigy. I mean, you studied all of these languages. You got so much education from different sources before going to college, which is where this whole units thing comes from.
Yes.
One would think that someone like you would be rewarded instead of having their financing taken away in this country.
I was surprised because I was an honor student as well, but I guess they set the rules and then there's not much that you can do about it, but thank God I got through it.
Right, and so the funding was taken away, you found yourself homeless. What then? I mean, most people I think would just give up and either go work full-time or just...
No, I knew at this point, I had also gotten a scholarship, so at least the education was paid for at that time. And had I left, then I would have had to pay it back as well. And then, of course, once you stop school, the loans that I had from before, I would have had to start paying on.
But walk us through the actual experience. I mean, I read in one piece that you were sleeping in the music studio.
Yes, there was a lab where we did certain music in, and since we had keys to it and I paid a fee to use the lab, I would sleep in there since we would do, music in there all the time. It was not uncommon for students to be in the music department until 1 or 2 in the morning. So I just used that, and then I would work on my project all the time, and then of course then I would sleep there.
Wow, and did your friends, did the school administrators know that this was happening to you?
For the most part, no. It was until a certain janitor kept on harassing me, and figured maybe I was sleeping there, and then he made it very difficult for me. And then that's when he started complaining, and then it got kind of worse from there for me.
And how did it get worse?
Well, the school actually had threatened to have me arrested, and the certain janitor just would not. I mean, if he wanted to clean the room, I said, "You can clean the room," and even the police said there's nothing that they could do at that time, and so it was difficult because every little noise that I heard, I thought it was someone trying to come in to arrest me or something. So.
And you're not. I mean, you're an honor student. What was your GPA during this time?
3.76, I believe, something like that. Yeah.
I mean, that's really just incredible. And as our reporter Ramon talked about in the story that aired just before you came on, I mean, this really is unfortunately somewhat of a trend, whether in college or in high school. Have you seen this play out in California during your years there? Do you know of other folks who have gone through similar experiences?
I have heard of other students going through it. I think that there are more than we realize. And another thing is just because you can't tell, a lot of people can't tell. Even a friend of mine who helped me said, well, wow, you always smell nice. Well, I take a shower. The only problem is we don't have enough money to rent a place.
And where'd you take a shower?
At the gym.
Oh, wow.
So I had a gym membership, and I had different lockers. I would take a dance class and have a locker there, and then have one in the PE off, and then the music department. It was difficult just knowing my schedule. They had a restroom where you could rest, so I would go there until it would end, and well, it did what I had to do, basically. And
I mean, you really do seem like you overcame all odds in this. You got your degree, you're getting even more education, you're succeeding on almost all counts. Do you feel overall, just looking at this country, do you feel like, does it really take an individual like yourself to succeed, or are there a lot of ways to get help out there? Because it seems to me that the government to some extent is letting some of our students down by not addressing this issue. I don't hear Obama talking about homelessness and youth.
I think it definitely exists. You can walk anywhere and see it. That's not a problem, but I think we don't see it with the youth as much, or it's not as apparent. I do feel that there will always be someone there to help you. A lot of times the government doesn't do what we really need. For, at least in California, if you go to school, you generally can't get food stamps, which I don't think really makes any sense, but that's the way it is.
But Libyans can get Tomahawk missiles, so I guess it'll...
So I mean, but I believe that there are other ways. There are soup kitchens, but at my school, in the music department, and any music department at a university, we have recitals. And generally, there's a buffet afterwards, so you can always get
But that's, you're really relying on your own wit and opportunity to make your way there.
Most definitely.
Yeah.
Most definitely. And so I think you just make the best out of it, and I think there's a purpose for it and a reason. It's usually to help someone else. And some people have told me that my story had been inspiring to them, so that's great.
Well, Brian, it really is an inspiration, especially amid these terrible statistics that we talked about in the story earlier. And I really do appreciate you taking the time. And hopefully some other folks out there, if they're watching, they'll say, what, quitting school isn't the only option. You can make way even if the government isn't lending you a hand.
Most definitely.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Now, that was Brian K. Smith, but we'll